Welcome to Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton, where we equip pastors to take their churches from declining to thriving by pointing them to a new future and a new hope. Join us weekly for encouragement and practical advice in your pastoring journey.
Hey, thank you, Dan Hurst. Hey, I'm here with Mark Hallock in his church basement. We're doing some podcasts today.
Yes, we are.
We're doing 150 podcasts in 2 days.
It's a marathon,
24
baby.
hours nonstop. We're not sleeping.
Well, we do. Hey, listen, have you ever shared the dream? This is true.
What's
This is
the
a
dream?
Replant radio.
Replant radio.
24 hours a day.
I know, that's what we want.
Listen, I mean, why not?
Somebody out there want to start a online radio station for us. Mark and I will be on 24/7. So, no, this is a marathon. We're going to do 24 hours of nonstop podcasts. We'll see how it goes. Okay, first, we're going to talk today about, people always say those church plants in town, man, they're really growing. And frankly, the reality is, the numbers from a few years ago were this. In a church under the age of 3 years, it took approximately 8 people to baptize one person every year. In a church over the age of 20 years, it took 40 people to baptize one person every year. So the baptism ratio is much, much greater in a new church, much better in a new church, I should say, than an older church. Why do older churches struggle so much? And a lot of the guys who listen to us are in older churches that are traditional in many ways and full of people who love Jesus, but they're not connecting their community. They're not making an impact like they did in previous years. And so our friend Rainer has really helped us with some insights here. We'll put it in the show notes. Here are some reasons, perhaps your church, maybe one of these reasons, maybe all of these reasons, your church finds itself struggling to be relevant and to reach people in the community and to make a difference for Jesus in your community.
Absolutely.
And we're saying now as opposed to 40 years ago.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Your church probably 30, 40 years ago was probably hitting on different cylinders than it is today.
For sure.
So what happened? What's happened?
What's happened? Okay, so you ready? Number one.
Number one.
We go.
Go for it.
Because they don't recognize the decline of cultural Christianity. Let's talk about that for a moment.
I say that all the time. I put it to you this way. We are used to having the wind at our back, not the headwinds toward us.
Interesting.
When my grandfather was planting churches, it was like the University of Kansas playing every game at Allen Fieldhouse. They still had to play the game, but everybody was cheering for us to win. I come along, my dad and I come along, it's like KU playing every game, maybe at a neutral setting. But today, it's like KU playing every game at Duke. And we're not used to the culture being against us, thinking that we're the problem. I've said this before. Back in the 70s, you could take a couple of men in an old painted school bus into a park, have pass out bubble gum and to kids, and parents would let their children get on that bus next Sunday morning.
Insanity.
8-year-old, 9-year-old ride to some church they don't even know where it's at. It happened.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It happened because back in the 70s, parents trusted churches, they trusted pastors, and they wanted their kids in Sunday school. Well, guess what? None of that's true today. And so I don't think we really understand what it means to be in a culture that is opposed to our gospel. But here's the reality, Mark. The places on this globe where the church is growing the fastest are the places where the culture is most adamantly against the gospel.
That's exactly right.
That's where the gospel can shine the brightest.
Yes.
This is not a hindrance to the gospel. It's just a hindrance to us because we don't know how to live in a world or function in a world where we have the culture against us.
That's a really good point. And I think this is why we need to help our people understand reality, right? Years ago, I can't remember who it was, but they said the number one job of a leader is to name reality. Well, we have to help name reality, help our folks name reality. And this is one of those. We're not living in 1962 anymore.
And so Rainer puts it this way, and he says it really well. Churches that are declining refuse to admit the world has changed around them. They're angered when someone suggests that their methodology and strategies don't work anymore. It's as though, well, our strategies are okay, the world is broken.
Yeah, it's their problem.
It's their problem.
Not ours.
Number two, these churches have far many church rules. In other words, Rainer says, sometimes what's supposed to be worn on Sundays, the time of worship, the polity issues, trying to do things the way we did 40 years ago. Now, look, if you're an older person, I'm going to tell you, stepping back 40 years feels pretty doggone good. In a world where I don't recognize anything anymore,
that is true.
Give me some place where I can step back 40 years. If you walked in, you've been to my den.
Oh, yeah.
You weren't impressed. Nobody's impressed
listen,
with me.
I loved it.
But I took
All
him
kinds
to
of
my
weird
den,
artifacts in
and
there.
I showed him everything in my den. Everything in my den is from 1960 to 1970. The whole thing's from the 1960s. I got an antique. Not an antique. I got an orange phone. It's like the old phone you'd hang on your wall. I've got clocks. I've got toys from the 1960s.
Listen, if you didn't know Clifton, you'd be creeped out completely.
Well,
But
that's true.
it's an awesome. Keep going.
I got all kinds.
You got all kinds
everything
of
in there
stuff.
from the 1960s, right? Maybe early 70s. And that's just. I love going in that room because it's like I'm familiar with it. That's what people do to church.
Yeah.
I want to go to this place where everything's like it was back in the good old days, and I don't want to change it. But the problem is, the good old days weren't. First of all, they weren't that good, and secondly, we're not in them. We're in something place different, and we're called to reach this culture and to be part of this culture.
Amen.
Listen to me. We are to be in the world, but not of it. And so very often, we don't want to be in it or of it. We
Man,
just
that's
have
true.
so
That's
so
true.
again.
And we need to be discerning and help our folks be discerning between those things that have been part of the past that are timeless biblical truths. We're not saying just nothing, but what are those things that are just preferences?
Sometimes the way a church did its polity 45 years ago, by polity I mean just the way they were organized and structured,
Right.
worked 40 years ago. It may not work today for a variety of reasons we don't have time to go into. But maybe you need to adjust that the way the church is structured. Maybe you need to adjust your Sunday school and worship times. Maybe you need to adjust small groups. Maybe you need to adjust many different things. But again, sometimes declining churches are so resistant to adjust anything because everything else in the world is changing, and we love the way the familiarity here at our church. Number three,
they have leaders who have never led in a highly unchurched mission field.
right? It's kind of what I said before. It's like the way we led 20 years ago. We would have a revival and people would come. We would announce an event and people would attend. When people moved into the community and they were looking for a church, they didn't go to the biggest church. They came to the church closest to them. That doesn't happen anymore.
Isn't that interesting?
It doesn't.
That's totally changed.
It's totally changed.
Yeah.
Or if they were Southern Baptist growing up, they were going to look in the yellow pages, which there aren't any yellow
for a
pages
Southern
anymore,
Baptist church.
for a Southern Baptist church. All of that has changed. I remember my dad went to a church in 1970 in Independence, Missouri, a part of Kansas City, and it was down to about 100 people, and he did a really good job of loving people and preaching well and organizing well, and the church grew significantly in his 25 years he was there. But I sat down the other day, and I thought, I named the families that grew that church, and certainly there were some conversions, don't get me wrong, but the main growth in that church were from people who were moving, a lot of them from Arkansas and Oklahoma, for jobs in Kansas City. And they had been Southern Baptist, and they moved into the neighborhood, and frankly, Mark, they just joined the closest Southern Baptist church. Yeah. Now, if my dad had been a jerk, they wouldn't have joined the church.
Right, sure.
But the fact that he was a wonderful, loving pastor encouraged that. But they just went to the closest church, or the church nearest them. Today, that doesn't happen. First of all, they don't know if it's Southern Baptist or not because it's not in the name half the time, frankly.
Yeah, that's true.
And secondly, they tend to go to the larger churches. We've said this so many times. The larger churches have a real gravitational pull. And if they're the low-hanging evangelical fruit, there's not much of it anymore, but people who move into your community and they want to find a good Bible-believing church, they're going to go online. So if your website doesn't look like much, that's a problem. They're going to go online. They're going to look for a church that's got probably a lot of opportunity. They'll visit that, and that church probably has a good follow-up and a good, and they're going to go there. Yeah. So the idea that the culture has changed, and you don't get the easy low-hanging fruit anymore.
That's true.
All
Here's
right?
number 4. This is really important. They confuse tradition with truth, which is kind of what we were just talking about.
It is, because here's the deal. You ready? This is, buckle up, Betty. This is big right here.
Buckle up, Betty.
The bylaws are not infallible, and they weren't breathed by the Holy Spirit.
Oh, boy.
But church members think they were, or they act like they were. In fact, some church members really have more respect and passion and defense of the bylaws than they may even of the New Testament.
Dude, that is so true.
And so this is how we do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what happens, the bylaws are broken. The church organizational structure is broken because it's based not on trust, but on mistrust. We have to put all these layers in place so that we've got to know what every dollar spent and every check's written and who's paying for this and who's paying for that. And certainly you want accountability, But my goodness, there has to be a level of trust. And if you have all of this account, I said before, the smaller the church, the longer it takes to make a decision because everybody thinks they're a part of it.
Yes.
And in a really small church, it's unclear who can say yes, the final yes, but anybody can say no to it.
Right.
And so, again, your church structure and organization may have functioned well 40 years ago when you had 300 people. Now you've got 50 people trying to maintain the same church structure, and it is not working well. And it becomes, in many ways, it becomes an idol, and they confuse that tradition with the truth of the gospel.
Man, that's really good, man.
Number five.
Number 5 is, this is really practical. They do outreach the way they've always done it.
I know.
Now, you've talked about this before, like back in the day, the Tuesday night visitation.
Yeah.
That kind of idea.
Right.
And man, the world has changed.
It has changed. And I know there are going to be people, we still do that and it works where you are. That's fine. But yeah, what we did for years, it was actually Thursday night. You didn't grow up as a Southern Baptist, so I'll give you a pass on that one.
Okay.
But it was Thursday night visitation. And so it was so funny. Sunday morning, we had our biggest crowds. Sunday night, pretty good sized crowd. Wednesday night, smaller. And then the real hardcore people came on Thursday night for visitation. And I look up in the parking lot
4 times a week. It's
4 times a week.
unbelievable.
I lived in the parsonage behind the church, and Wednesday night you can see the cars. Sunday night you see the cars, but Thursday night I didn't go to visitation. I'd see there'd be 8 or 6 cars up there. My dad and a couple 3 deacons, a couple other people.
Now hold on. I'm going to interrupt you because I'm sitting here going, I don't even get this whole deal. When I think visitation, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to go visit and pray for members and the sick.
No.
But this is what he's saying
Prospect
is
visitation.
So explain.
So what
it
happened
is.
was you would try to find prospects. And by the way, I love the fact that Rainer says we know what we mean when we say prospect, but that's not a good word because it means that's in sales, right?
Yeah.
You're a good prospect, man. But that's what happened. In fact, maybe they still do. But back in the day, the Sunday school board had prospect forms, and you would fill out. It was in triplicate. You had pink and yellow and white or whatever, and you'd get one, the pastor would get one, the Sunday school class director would get one. And so if someone visited your Sunday school class, all right, if they visited Sunday school and they weren't a member, you fill out a prospect form on them. If they visited on Sunday morning when they visited, this is another thing, you would say, we have any visitors with today, would you stand? And the deacons, the ushers rather, would like to place a visitor's card in your hand, and in that visitor's card, on the visitor's card, was a red ribbon that said visitor, and you would put that on your lapel or your dress, and so everybody would know as a scarlet letter that you were a visitor that day. Now, that sounds really weird, but in 1960, that was how we welcomed people, and people felt welcome.
They felt loved.
They felt loved.
Yep.
And so they would fill out this thing, and so on Thursday night, the pastor and the other members that were there would divvy up these prospect lists of people who'd been visiting or friends that they knew, and they would cold call them.
Okay.
Now, when I did sales, I sold vacuum cleaners.
I know you did.
And I would cold call, man. You got to be hard-nosed to knock on a door and say, you want to buy a vacuum
Takes
cleaner,
some real
lady?
boldness,
It
man.
does. But these were Thursday night cold calls. Now, some people are saying, it still works, and, you're the holy... And it does, it can, but not on a broad scale like it used to be. Because, first of all, people aren't home on Thursday nights.
They're not around.
Secondly, they got something called Ring doorbells. And if they don't want to come to the door, they ain't coming to the door.
They see you're there, and they're going to ignore you.
Back in 1975, if you knocked or rang on somebody's doorbell, they opened it. It was a cultural, social, acceptable thing to do. And if you didn't do that, you weren't being acceptable. My point in all of that is that the way we reach people, the way we follow up on new prospects has changed tremendously. Now it needs to be much more relational, hanging out where unchurched people hang out, finding out how you can be in those third places where people enjoy coffee and other things. Here's what I say already. How much time we got? We got 4 minutes? Well, we'll make this done. Whatever. 6 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway,
Keep rolling.
I think it's important. You got your iPhone with you, but even better than that, man, because I get tired of iPhones. Have one of those little tiny pocket-size spiral notebooks you can stick inside your shirt pocket. And as a normative-sized church pastor, when you've got a new person shows up there, don't ask them to stand up and make a deal out of themselves. But after church, say, hey, I'm Mark, and what's your name? Your name's Bill, and this is your wife's Kathy. It's great to meet you. Hey, would it be possible maybe, I don't know, this week sometime, could we meet for coffee or something? And just pull out that little thing and write their name down right there in front of them and and just call them and go meet them. They're going to be much more comfortable probably meeting you at Starbucks or Panera than necessarily you showing up at their door. Yeah. Now, not always, but that's a different. And if 40 years ago that would have seemed really cold and indifferent, why wouldn't you want to come to their house? That's what I'm struggling to say.
And I agree. No, and I agree. I mean, we need to pursue them. I mean, I think that's a huge shift. Is, you know what? You've got to show up to soccer games and when you're there, don't just sit by yourself like the weird guy. You got to engage people. You got to pursue them. You need to ask good questions. You need to take people for coffee. You need to go get a burrito for lunch.
That's right.
This is why you need to look at your budget. Like when I came to Calvary, I said this, our budget, we hardly had any money. I said, if I can just have money to be able to take people to coffee.
There you go.
That's all I need, because I just know it's about relationships.
Yeah.
It's about pursuing people, lost people, new people. So we've got to be intentional about that.
Outreach is just done differently today than it was 40 years ago. It's because people's lifestyles are different today than it was 40 years ago.
We're talking about how reasons why traditional churches are struggling. We've looked at 5 reasons. Here's number 6. Because they have significant conflict due to frustration.
What it means is this. If you're in the locker room of the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's not a happy place because they're not winning any games, right? So,
although, you know what, they won last week.
Well, now you just blew my whole thing.
Well, I know. I just it's the reason I say it was kind of miraculous.
But okay, but you know, this is coming out weeks later. They probably have lost 5.
Yeah, that's
in a row.
probably true. That's probably.
But let me just say this: if you have a team on a losing streak.
The Rockies.
There you go. It is not a happy locker room.
No.
And there's frustration, right? I remember when the Royals were really at the bottom of the barrel one time, and I can't remember their manager. I forgot his name. But there's this very famous video of him. He comes into the locker room, and they've lost another game, and he is so angry. He takes the phone off his desk, rips it off the desk, slams it up against the wall. You know, he's all he get. The frustration when things aren't going well.
Yeah.
And so if your church is in decline financially, numerically, generationally, that frustration is going to feed over into other things.
Man, that's so true.
And you're gonna sense it.
Okay, number 7, they are very slow to respond. And here's what Rainer's saying here. Their internal culture moves at a much slower pace than the community around them.
Man, read that again.
Their internal culture moves at a much slower, a snail's pace compared to the community around them.
And everybody says amen.
Yeah, that's right.
That's such a true statement.
It is so true.
Every now and then, Rainer says something good. That is such a true statement.
Man.
Because their culture goes at 20 miles an hour, and the culture that they live in, the church culture there, goes 20 miles an hour. The culture they find themselves in is going 100 miles an hour.
That's right.
And that's it's just like their signage, their social media presence, everything is changing so fast, and they're so slow to adapt to that change.
And this is why you've got to be wise and lead at a slow, steady, intentional pace.
And I love what he says. If they do respond, they tend to be 10 years too late.
Just when it's time to change again.
Some of you are saying, that is my church. Man, we just moved from overhead cells to PowerPoints, and now PowerPoints are passé.
I know.
All right.
I went to, sorry, real quick, I'll just show you.
Okay.
My wife and I, we were on my sabbatical last year. We love visiting different churches, and especially small churches. And we went to this church, and it was, they were so sweet. I mean, but this guy leading worship, he said, "I'll tell you what, I'm so excited. We're gonna teach you a new song today." And and everybody's just kind of staring. He goes, "It's a song. You ready for this? We want you to shine. It's called Shine, Jesus, Shine." Here we go. Where they went for it. And I'm like, I think I heard this song the first time when I was 10. But to them, it was brand new. It was risky. It was contemporary worship.
So what Rainer says is they're 10 years behind even when they try to catch up. Oh, that is so funny.
Oh, man. So finally, number 8.
Number 8.
They have significant facility challenges.
I know. They don't notice it because it's the same place they've been in for years. So they don't notice the drabness of it. They don't notice the mustiness of it. The fact that it smells like a mixture of...
Oh, man, dude. It smells weird.
Yeah, it does. a church basement smells is a mixture of sort of maybe a backup sewer. Or I should say must. Sort of a musty smell.
Yeah.
50 years of potlucks and a bunch of old Sunday school literature. I mean, it all kind of smells in there together, you know?
I think you could make a cologne.
I think you could. Church basement.
Church basement.
So that, and then even the doorways can be narrow, the hallways can be narrow, the ceilings can be low, the lighting can be poor, the restrooms can be really frightening. The children's area can look like something from a movie from 40 years ago. And the members don't think anything of it because it just looks normal to them.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
It's like you walk into your grandparents'
They're
house.
oblivious, yeah.
And they're oblivious because this is how it's always looked.
Right.
But to a new person walking in, it looks like something's wrong here. Something's not right here. It doesn't look welcoming, inviting. Yeah. It doesn't have clear signage. It doesn't look clean. It doesn't smell clean. I'm telling you, how your church, really, that first impression, the odor and that kind of thing can really be massive. So,
well, and even those of us, here's the thing, that grew up in the church and were part of churches in the same way. This is why getting fresh eyes, this is a great way to engage somebody who's not a Christian. Say, hey, can you just come over? And I just want to walk around the church with you. And just give me your impressions. What do you notice about this? We want this to be a welcoming environment. And they'll shoot straight, and you'll see things you didn't even see.
Yeah. He also says some of you are in worship centers where capacity is 3 times what you have in attendance now. So basically, guys, I know you don't have any money right now. I get that. But find ways to address the yard in your church to make it look like people actually live there and care about it, the signage to make it look new, the restrooms to make them look bright and clean, the lighting to make sure you've got good lighting, at least, and good signage about where the restrooms are, where the children's area is. And then if you've got a sanctuary that's 3 times larger than your congregation, find some way to downsize that sanctuary. I mean, to remove the pews and use chairs, to remove some of the pews and leave some of the pews. And a really challenging thing, to even use pipe and drape at the back and use part of it for like a greeting area and coffee area, then the other part for the sanctuary. Something to make it seem more intimate.
Something.
Because if you've got a sanctuary that seats 400 and you average 75 people, it looks like 325 people just didn't come that day.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes your church isn't too small, your building's just too big.
That's right.
And it's a little like a guy used to weigh 400 pounds, and now he weighs 100 pounds, but he hadn't got any new clothes. So he's walking around in clothes that just don't fit him anymore. Sometimes you got to make your building. That's a whole other podcast.
That's great, though.
We
That's
say
wise.
that all the time. Every week we say.
There's a lot of podcasts coming.
No, we don't believe in drinking games on this show. We really don't, unless it's drinking Diet Coke or Coke Zero. So we do have a bit of that kind of game. Every time Mark and I say that's a whole nother podcast, you take a drink of Diet Coke or Coke Zero, and you'll drink a lot of Diet Coke and Coke Zero. You will before the day is over.
Guys, hopefully this has been helpful in just thinking through why traditional churches are struggling. But there's hope.
There is always hope.
The
hope is the gospel.
Amen.
The hope that Jesus has a plan for every church. The hope is found at churchreplanters.com. No, I'm just kidding.
There it is. Hey,
but there are some resources there, and there is hope for that. And I don't want you to think there isn't. But the point of this podcast was to point out some of the challenges you face.
Yep.
You're not alone in that.
You're not.
But brothers, you can't ignore them. They will not go away on their own.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks.
See you next time.
Thanks for joining us today on Revitalize and Replant. This podcast is brought to you by the North American Mission Board, where we help dying or struggling churches regain health for the glory of God and the good of their communities. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. To learn more about becoming a replanting pastor or to explore resources about revitalization for your own church, visit churchreplanters.com.